story we've been following is, of course, this debt ceiling vote that's taking place literally right now. Nick Harper has, of course, been following this throughout the day. We are now in the final hours, right?
That's right, Philip. Yeah, we're heading towards the final vote, which should take place at some point in the next hour or so. So it's just past 8 p.m. Washington time. For about the last 45 minutes or so, the Republicans and the Democrats have been engaged in their final debate, really the final last hour, where they get to make their points, say whether they think this is a good bill or a bad bill. We've just been hearing from Kevin McCarthy, the Republican House Speaker, really making his last sales pitch for this bill to try and get as much support as he possibly can. And he said during the course of his speech that really he had claimed victory for this, that he had forced President Biden to negotiate, and he felt that it was going to be a good vote in the coming hour or so. Now, we're expecting this debate to last about another 15 minutes or so. Then they'll move to the final vote, a chance for all of the lawmakers to vote. But we've already had an indication this evening as to which way each one of them will potentially vote. There was a procedural vote at the beginning of the evening, a vote on the rule, essentially laying the ground rules for the next few hours. And we did see something of a Republican revolt. There were 29 Republicans who voted against this bill. It meant that 52 Democrats had to join the Republicans in order to get it approved. So 241 lawmakers voted for the rules. And the thinking is that that will probably be a very similar number when they all vote on the final legislation in the next hour or so. It is a tricky process, but we are, as you mentioned, getting to that final point of all of this for the House of Representatives.
You have to love politics, right? Because a week ago we were fighting and screaming and yelling and throwing things at each other, and now they're still doing that, but I guess they're going to vote on it. So correct me if I'm right. We're going to have the vote in the House today. Assuming it goes through, it goes to the Senate. I think all the assumptions are it's going to go through. And then after that, it goes to the desk of the President of the United States to finalize it. And there's enough time to get this done today, tomorrow, by Friday?
Well, that's the hoping, and you make it sound tremendously easy there, Philip, but of course it isn't that easy, and there is a sticky problem ahead, namely the Senate. 100 senators there, evenly divided pretty much between Republicans and Democrats, but already some of them have been making noises about wanting amendments to this bill. That's their opportunity to write in things that they would like to change. Now, the Democrat leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, is trying to get this fast-tracked through because he knows that there is a clock ticking. Monday is the date when the US is going to default. If there are amendments, it gets sent back to the House. They would need to vote on it again. It could take us all the way through the weekend, right down to the deadline on Monday before the president gets to sign it.
All right, that's going to ruin a lot of weekends if we do that. I hope we get it done sooner than that. Appreciate the update. We'll keep an eye on this. Thank you. For more on this deal or no deal, we're joined by John Quelch, professor at the University of Miami Herbert School of Business. Professor, you're laughing. What Nick said earlier is that even if it gets through the House, the Senate could throw on a monkey wrench in the whole thing and put a couple of amendments on there that's going to make everybody angry, and then we have no deal, and then all hell breaks loose. Help me out here.
Extremely unlikely, Phil. I think that the Senate, in a way, has been left out of the debate to this point, and so anyone in Washington who's left out of the discussion always feels a little bit irked and wants to make a mark. So I think we will see some amendments offered by the U.S. senators, probably from the progressive left, and perhaps a couple from right-wing Republicans who think defense is underfunded. These amendments can be then voted on. My expectation is that none of them will pass, but the senators in question will feel as though they've had their chance to be heard and made a point on behalf of their constituents. So I would expect to see passage in the Senate, and then it will go to the president, and we'll wonder what we were worried about for the last 2 months.
By the way, just to point this out to our viewers, you are looking at live pictures of Washington on the floor of, I guess, Congress on Capitol Hill. where that's being led by, you can see there, the House Speaker McCarthy. This should go on for a few more minutes prior to a formal vote, barring any objections. We, of course, will keep you posted. Back to our discussion, John. This deal is disliked by some on the left, some on the right. I think the vast majority, at least in the middle, seem to be okay with it. Do you think this is is this a good deal?
I think regardless of how good a deal it is, in terms of the facts of the deal, it is a victory, curiously enough, a victory for bipartisanship, which has long been in jeopardy and in doubt in Washington. So for a majority of Democrats and Republicans to come together to pass this bill negotiated by their respective leaders is a very good assertion of bipartisanship. And I would make a further point, if I may. The Progressive Caucus in the Democratic Party is 101 members of the House of Representatives. The Freedom Caucus on the Republican side is 45 members.
Good point.
As we heard earlier, 29 of the 45 voted against the decision, essentially, to bring the vote to the floor of the House. That means that the Freedom Caucus itself was split already in terms of its voting power and did not vote as a bloc. And that is also a positive for bipartisanship. If these left and right-wing caucuses can be split by such an important national issue, that's good news for Washington and good news for the image of Washington with the country.
Yeah, look, whatever your feelings are on discretionary spending, the budget, or any U.S. policy for that matter, you're not going to throw the country into default because you're mad about something or you don't like something. So any congressperson or politician who thinks that way, it would literally be sabotage on the United States. It's symbolic to me, but I see your point. One discussion I did have with Ahmad, our executive producer, earlier was the fact that, you know, the language that I've been reading about it. We are suspending the debt limit, but I don't read anywhere where we're raising the debt ceiling. So I know this is maybe a little technical, but they're not really raising the debt ceiling. They're just not going to enforce the debt ceiling. Are we reading that correctly?
I think what they're saying, Phil, is that they're going to maintain the debt at a particular level for the next 2 years and not have to come back next year to go through this unfortunate energy sapping charade that we've had to endure for the last couple of months. I mean, there is a lot of important work that the Congress can do other than using energy on this kind of a debate. However, it has to be said that Speaker McCarthy was basically written off as a lame duck immediately he was voted in after 15 or so votes. And I think the White House did not take him seriously enough. And he has, in my opinion, produced a very positive result for the Republicans, not one that everyone obviously is interested in endorsing, but relative to where he would have been expected to have been at this stage, I think he's done pretty well from a political point of view. So I don't see any risk to his speakership at all.
Well, look, assuming this all goes through and there's a big signing event and everyone stands and shakes hands, I'm sure as politics work, everyone takes credit for everybody else's sacrifices. Professor, it's good to see you, and of course we will continue to monitor this story very closely.